Good morning. Let's call this meeting of the Camden County Commission to order. If you please rise for prayer and pledge. Our Lord, we gather here today before you, Lord, to discuss the business of our county. We ask that you temper our hearts and our minds, that we can lend a good discussion here, and that we just all do your work and in your service. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all. Thank you. Call roll, please.
Ike Skelton.
Here.
James Gohagan.
Here.
Don Williams.
Here.
All right. I will entertain a motion to amend or approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
And have you men had a chance to look at the previous minutes?
I haven't either.
Well, we did a lot that day.
Are you done? I've seen them already.
Okay. All right. Then I entertain a motion to approve.
I will move to approve the minutes. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Very good. All right, very good. Before we get started here, I'd just like to recognize Presiding Commissioner of Miller County, Kevin Carwell, is here with us, and First District Commissioner Don Abbott is with us, and State Representative Lisa Thomas is with us. So thank you all for coming this morning. We've got a short little agenda, but I bet it's going to be fun. Hey, Kyle, how are you doing this morning? Good to see you. So first item up, I would ask our treasurer, Ms. Kendra Hicks, come forward and talk to us about the CART funds for Horseshoe Bend 2022 disbursements.
Speaking of Horseshoe Bend, did we get that check to them out? Has that check gone through? Yeah, it did go through. All right, good, very well. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm assuming you guys have a court order in front of you and maybe even a spreadsheet. This is for the 2022 CART funds for Horseshoe Bend Special Road District. They figured it up. I double checked all their numbers, and all the figures are based off of the CART funds that we received from the state for 2022. And the total disbursement that we owe them is $367,975.74.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Ms. Hicks?
Jerry, this is the president of the Horseshoe Bend Road District. Jerry, do you have any questions or any comments?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
Total agreement on the amount.
Yeah.
Excellent. Glad to hear that.
Down
Really
to the
happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Good.
You have any questions, sir?
I sure don't.
All right. At this time, then we need to entertain a motion here to sign the certified copy of the order to disperse $367,975.74 from Camden County Road and Bridge to the Horseshoe Bend Special Road District.
Can I see that? I will make a motion to disperse $367,975.74 to the Horseshoe Bend Special Road District. A second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second to disperse these funds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is to disperse the funds of $367,975.74 from Road and Bridge to Horseshoe Bend Special Road District. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Same sign, or excuse me, all opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion carries. And I think our system's working, so this is live, not Memorex. All right, very good. That issue is out of the way. Next item on the agenda is In God We Trust. Yes, I do. And so the reason this is on here is I went to the National Association of Counties annual conference a week ago in Austin, Texas. In the exhibit halls, as most conferences will have, they had a group of individuals there that had a table, and they were with In God We Trust USA. Their goal is to get every municipality and every county to somewhere on their, whether it be letterhead or wherever they're going to put it, they would like to see the motto, In God We Trust. What they really want to do is see it somewhere like behind us. So I brought it forward to the other two commissioners, and we're here to discuss this morning. I sent an email around proposing that we put out for consideration to high school students, to various artists, whoever wants to participate, have a little bit of a contest, and whoever comes up with the best conceptual design, we would then probably come up with an artist and have them actually put it on the wall. So we're looking for maybe some sort of a mural that memorializes Camden County and our Great Lake of the Ozarks and other things that we stand for in agriculture, and certainly in all of that should be In God We Trust. So I'll open up, and there's some court action and rulings that said it's just fine. You know, look, if you want to talk about the wall of separation between government and religion, we can have that discussion. If you know what the Danbury Baptist letter was, then we'll have that discussion. If you don't, it'll be an educational thing. So that's kind of why we're here then this morning, to discuss this. And I will first open it up to Don, if you want to, as a senior member of the commission. I will let you open this up if you'd like and discuss it, see what your thoughts are, and then I'll throw it over to First District Commissioner Gohagan, see what their thoughts are, and then we'll open it up to the room.
I like the idea. Most people don't realize that In God We Trust is actually our national motto.
Right.
It's not just on coinage; it's on a lot of public buildings, and it's on our dollar. That's right. I'm looking at a case right here from 1970 where Stephen Ray Aronow sued the United States, saying that using the phrase "In God We Trust" violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, the separation between church and state. But the court said that it's clear it's not being used as a sponsorship of a religious exercise. It's more of a patriotic or ceremonial character. And the courts have, all the cases I've seen, the courts have pretty consistently ruled exactly that. The simple phrase "In God We Trust" is not an issue, although I'm sure it'll be an issue for some people. But I like the idea. I think we should do it.
Okay. Mr. Gohagan?
I mean, I want a big eagle and a flag and Lake of the Ozarks, maybe the lightning bolt.
Right.
I think it's great. I want to see it happen. Garrett here, actually, you did the mural down there in Lake Ozark, right? Just for informational, if you don't want to tell us, but could you tell us how much something like that cost? I think we'd keep it pretty conservative and just have "In God We Trust." But I was joking.
Well,
I mean, it would be cool. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, so I think that's part of the fun of opening this up to letting some kids figure it out, some high school students or something, and see if we can really come up with something a little more substantial. I mean, "In God We Trust" is about as substantial as you get if you just want to get right down to the crux of it. But I think it would be neat to have a little more back here symbolizing what Camden County stands for, and that we do as a county. Look, one thing loving about Camden County is I think we truly are a county that does believe in God, and we trust in God. And so I think, we see it on all of our county vehicles for the sheriff's department, and I think it's a good thing. So do you have anything else this time? All right. So
I just want to say that I was reading a case here where the court made a statement that is something I said back when back about 5 years ago, I guess. We had an atheist group out of Illinois threaten to sue the county over our 9/11 painting because it has a cross in the painting. And I made the point then that people often misunderstand the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause. They weren't, the doctrine was not invented so much as to prevent any association between government and religion, but more to prevent government control of religion or government restraint on religious practice. It was never meant to totally eliminate religion from public society. So that's it. I'm done talking.
Jimmy Brashear's deputy or undersheriff gave us these cheat sheets. He's obviously researched this and looked it up. So thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate that.
Awesome. Absolutely. Very much. Thank you. So then to allow anyone to say anything they'd like to talk about on this topic, we're just going to raise a hand and you can come forward, but to be on the record, you really have to get in front of this microphone. The recording doesn't pick it up otherwise. So at this time, I would open the floor to anyone who would like to have or has a discussion or a question or input or what have you on this matter. If you do, just raise your hand, please. The chair will recognize you and you can come forward. Yes, Mr. Larson, please step forward, state your name and what's on your mind.
My name is Les Larson, and I would just call attention to the fact, I think it was just a few days ago on July 30th in 1956, when the motto, "In God We Trust," was adopted by President Eisenhower at that time. And that's just a few days ago, so the timing is really good.
Excellent.
And I think that it's been around a long time, and that should be acknowledged.
Very good. Thank you, Les. Anyone else? Any comments? Anything that? Yes, ma'am. Come on.
There's a lot of large blank walls.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You know,
no,
they've
yeah.
got that Our Heritage painting down there. I think it's in your office, Marty. You know which one I'm talking about? Some updated version of that would be pretty nice to have. And we do have lots of, you know,
Maybe
blank canvas.
yeah, maybe that's something that you know, each office holder could maybe come up with something and maybe have a little contest within your office and come up with an idea and pick a spot and I don't know, we can work with something like that. I think that'd be interesting to have some more things around the courthouse. Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody has painted inside of the building. You guys notice, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Well, we may be talking in the future then. Any other discussion on this topic? Anything at all? Yes, go ahead, Don.
Don Newhart, live here in town. I too support the move that you gentlemen are contemplating here. The thing I might offer, and you might check further in some of this, is there any prohibition or any potential stickies when it comes to the expenditure of public or tax funds for such a thing? Or is it maybe possible to open it up for free will donations on the part of the citizens of the county or others to help fund this, lest any type of accusation come against the county for expending public funds on this? Although historically there is precedent as well for Congress even in having enacted and appropriating funds fully allowable for publication of Bibles for provision of chaplains and whatnot for our military. So I just offer that for your consideration as well. Thank you, gentlemen.
I appreciate that, Don. You know, that's fascinating. A lot of people don't know that Congress ordered the first printing of the Bible to be put around. So yeah, way back when. Any other discussion? You want to say something, Dr. Waller?
Yeah.
Please go ahead. Just state your name and sign in there. It'd be great.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Chuck Waller, and I just wanted to say I think this is a great idea. And as far as I'm concerned, the biggest and most powerful word in the English language is the word great. It's way above good, or I'm just getting by. So I think this is a wonderful word, and I think if we use it and we move forward, like we always have in this community, we don't know what backwards is. We know what just forward is. It's the only gear we have in our transmission. I think it's great that the people here get things done like they do, and they work in such good harmony, actually great harmony. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Doc. I appreciate that. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone else have anything they'd like to say? Any comment, opinion, what have you? Any input? All right, seeing nothing else. Do we need to, we don't need to, we don't need to vote on anything to move this forward, or?
Do we want to put a request for proposal out, or, you know, if we're going to have somebody do a lot of, or we need to figure out how we're going to.
Yeah, how we're going to decide what it is we want to put up there. Do we want to put a contest out for kids at the high school? I think we ought to involve as much of the community as we can.
I think that's a great idea.
Probably ought to vote on some kind of a request for proposal, which we can finally approve later, but.
Well, that, or let's, how about, we put out just a request for, a vision, what the mural should look like. And then once we have picked what it'll be, then we can put out the request for proposal to actually have it painted.
So we vote to request submission of artistic designs, and
there you go.
Okay.
And then after that, we can, once we got something that we pick, we can then have another motion and an actual vote to expend funds, or to seek what it's going to cost, and then figure out how we're going to expend those funds, taking Mr. Newhart's thoughts into consideration as to whether we can raise the funds privately, or if we're going to, I mean, we can do a lot of things. We have various funding mechanisms we could use. We probably have enough still in our passport fund or something else of that nature that we could expend that is not directly taxpayer funds, but we can discuss that at another time. At this morning, I guess then I would just entertain a motion to move forward with this project and seek recommendations on what the mural will actually look like.
I'll make a motion to request proposals for artistic concepts and designs for the county that include the phrase "In God We Trust."
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion on the motion, we will move forward to get a proposal out for a design and artistic concept of what the mural will look like, including the words "In God We Trust." All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll get that forward and we'll get something out to folks so that they can participate in design. And I would say that'd probably be open to just about anybody. So if anybody in this room wants to jot something down on a piece of paper as to what it should maybe look like, please do and submit that to the commission. All right, next item up then on the agenda is the SB 190. We've been talking about this an awful lot. It has certainly been signed by the governor. It is now law. Implementation and what even the language looks like has been rather interesting. We've been hashing it out. We've had, I don't know, a working session, a meeting or two on this. And there's been a webinar through the Missouri Association of Counties as to what things, how things should look like. I believe that through these other meetings and discussions that we've had, the commission is looking at creating just a simple ordinance. And we know that, or we're confident that a large majority of the people would want this done. And as we've said before, it should be the right thing to do. What this will do is it'll help freeze the property taxes of those eligible for Social Security at basically their current rate. There's some hoops that the individual has to jump through, and we have some processes that we have to do here at the county level. So we're going to open it up for discussion again. I'm going to start off, I think, with our attorney, Mr. Green, if you have some thoughts on what that ordinance should look like.
Well, initially, we need to follow what the state has authorized. I think one of the biggest concerns that I've heard from the people involved and the people in general is the application, the implementation. How is this actually going to work? My intent would be to to work closely with the collector's office and the assessor's office, because those are the two offices that are going to be affected by this. That's where the workload's going to come from the county's perspective. And to see what works for them, what doesn't work for them, what makes the most sense, try and get something drafted as soon as possible. You know, right now we're out on the leading edge of this. I've got an email out to Travis Elliott. He's the attorney for Missouri Association of Counties. They had intended to put out some draft language for this. I think they're struggling also because the implementation of this could be different from one county to the next. Miller County is here, thank goodness, because that's where I live. So I'll help you draft whatever you need to draft. But Miller County is liable to be different than Camden County, which is liable to be different than Jackson County, which will be different from Boone County. There's a lot of differences. You'll find any city will be different than what we have out here. So I want to be careful that we craft something that works for us. And at the same time, if it doesn't work for some other county, that's fine. They don't have to use it. And there should be no offense because they're just different. I mean, the way we live and our societies are different between St. Louis, Kansas City, and St. Louis, not to mention Springfield and Columbia. So I want to take some time, try and make sure we get it right the first time. One of the things that I think most of the legal community is concerned about is we're fairly certain there's going to be a lawsuit involving this because the way it was done, the way it was drafted, how loose it is, the implementation. You know, we've reached out to most of the taxing entities or the recipients of taxing entities in the county for input. I don't think we've gotten a lot of input back yet, but those would be the ones that would have standing to file suit against the tax because they're the ones that are going to be affected. The SB 40 board, the school districts, the fire districts, the ambulance districts, all of those different entities. So my intent would be to draft something that works for everyone, try and prevent a lawsuit if we possibly can. You know, it's not going to work for everyone. There's going to be people that are upset. It's just one of those things that happens. So do the best we can. I've begun a draft of this to try and identify all those different topics that are going to be an issue. And once I get something a little more firm, I'm going to try and get together with the collector and assessor and start putting something together. I'd rather get it done as opposed to a petition coming forward and then things get in stone under a vote. If we put together an ordinance and we pass an ordinance and we find out a month later or 6 months later that we need to change it, we can change it much easier than trying to go back through a petition of some sort. So that's kind of where I am.
Well, very good. Yeah. And so that was our thought process with an ordinance for sure, because if it does change, if there is a lawsuit, we don't have to put the money forward to put it back on the ballot again, which we'd have to do to begin with too. So if we just create the ordinance, we can tweak that ordinance as necessary. I'm going to ask Representative Thomas first, and then I'll ask you gentlemen if you'd like to have any input, and then you two folks to see if you have any input as well. Representative Thomas, do you know of anything that the legislature, because I know this has been a problem, mostly as Mr. Green said, the implementation and what exactly is going to be frozen, when, all these other different things. I think we are kind of interpreting it to say that nothing starts until 8/28 of 23, and the taxing year that will actually go into effect is 24. So I know there was concern about having to go all the way back to, you know, if somebody owned that house in 1990 and were eligible for Social Security, we're going to have to go all the way back to then and freeze their taxes at that point. We don't believe that's the case. We believe it starts in 8/28 of 23. So anything going forward from there. And I think by making it that way, there was also some discussion that if you, because the ordinance or the law says county revenue or county taxes, I think. So could that be interpreted to where it's only the county tax, which you guys don't have? Or is it the school tax and all the other different levies? So I think that we're interpreting it that it is the taxes across the board, property taxes across the board. And it's going to be, we're going to freeze it at that particular level for all of those taxing entities. And it would then be up to those taxing entities to challenge the ordinance or what have you. Do you have any input otherwise on that?
You're saying that if you have specific questions, I'm more than happy to try to
So
sponsor the bill
I-
and get their intent, but that would be my interpretation as well.
I-
That's what I thought it was.
I would like to know, because they made a definition now, eligible taxpayer. And that didn't exist before, and they made very specific in their wording that eligible taxpayer. So my question is who's not going to consider themselves, eligible? It's just a strange definition to throw in the wording.
Well, and I'll address that a little bit. And
But this really needs to be stated for the record, because he's a lawyer, but he makes a really good argument right here.
This is one that I'm probably more concerned about than anything else, because it is, it is subject to interpretation, or it's gray, or but the definition clearly says someone that's eligible for Social Security. Well, what about a teacher? Teacher is never going to be eligible for Social Security. They don't get Social Security. And what about somebody that retired from the railroad?
Yeah.
Are we going to pick on teachers and railroad retirees? And I think there's a few other governmental types of entities that don't qualify for Social Security. Unfortunately, right now, that's what the statute says. And one of the questions I'm struggling with is, do we just follow the statute, or do we, I don't want to say ignore the statute, but augment the statute and include those other groups? And that's one of those discussions we haven't had yet, but it's a concern I have. It's easy if you follow the statute, because we'll get in a lawsuit and say, hey, we followed the statute. It is what it is. If you want to say that the statute's unconstitutional, that's not my problem. And then the opposite is true also. We decide to augment and include the teachers and the railroad and all of those other individuals. Well, are their benefits different than Social Security benefits, as opposed to when they start and when we freeze things and so on and so forth? So it does complicate things. I wish I had a good answer, but I don't at the moment.
Well, we were kind of talking with the Miller County Commission yesterday about this, that, we can always be more restrictive than the state, but what's that look like? Well, maybe allowing those groups and allowing the other taxing entities would be considered more. It's all about how you argue it, I think.
Would you man want to come so you can be on the record, whatever? Do you have anything you want to say and any input? Okay.
Identified the interpretation of this thing amounting to when we freeze this. If we freeze this in 2023 and don't go back, I think this is going to solve the majority of the problems if it's not interpreted by law.
And that's one of the things that I've thought about a lot. And it's hard when we get into these kind of things when statutes are created like this. The interesting thing about this statute is it just says the counties may. It doesn't say the counties shall. This statute did not create anything. It just authorized the counties to do things. So, from my perspective, if that's what it's doing, it's authorizing the counties to take some liberties in what they want to do. Anytime you look at a new statute or ordinance that's retrospective, is what's referred to, it's going backwards. How far do you go back? I mean, I've had in my private practice in the past, and I'm pretty sure she's still alive, an individual has just turned 100. She's lived on the property her entire life. So do we go back 35 years when she turned 65 or whatever the number is? That math is pretty close. I don't know, 35 years ago, was Social Security the same as it is now? Probably not. I don't know. And to try and go back and do those kinds of things just doesn't, it's almost impossible. Courts are typically looking at, is what you did reasonable? And I think in a situation like this, where we have a statute that doesn't take effect until August 28th of this year, making the deadline August 28th of this year is one of those things I think I can stand on firm ground and say, statute wasn't effective until now. We can't go backwards. We did not have anything such as an eligible taxpayer prior to August 28th. because the statute didn't even exist and wasn't enforceable till then. So I agree with you, Bill, Don. I think that makes a tremendous amount of sense. It makes things a lot easier to just say the assessment value is the value as of August 28th, and go from there. Because we can collect that data. We have that data. The assessor knows what those values are.
Do you feel the biggest threat from lawsuits from outside would be from our taxing entities if we go back 25, 30 years and freeze the taxes at that point through them? There's going to be a huge amount of lost revenue at that point. We start in 23, then they don't, I think that we will end up without as much of a challenge with lawsuits in that.
I agree with you. You know, if we freeze things as of August 28th, then there's no loss of revenue. There's a loss of future increase in revenue, but there's no loss of revenue. So when the school district comes in, you know, who gets the vast majority of our taxes, and they say, hey, we're losing money. Well, we're not losing money. You're just being frozen for that individual, for that piece of property, as long as they continue to own it.
If you start time traveling, though, they definitely will.
And you know,
I also think the real lawsuit from that will come from an individual taxpayer, because if they've been in the home like this lady who's talking about, and they read that statute and they say, well, it should be frozen from back 30 years ago when I had this house, because, you know, it says something about when you became eligible and owned the home. So that might be a point of contention, which in reality, some of these questions may not be answered, but for a lawsuit, if the General Assembly is going to take it up, and I think there are some stirrings that they are going to take it up and maybe revise some things, which also then lends itself to the desire to create a statute an ordinance instead of a vote. Because if we interpret it the way that we're going to interpret it, and I believe you guys are right, it should stay as 8/28. That's when we're going to start it. And that eligible is my next question. Who is eligible for Social Security? Could we add age eligible to that and just say, well, whenever you turn 62, that's when you're generally eligible for Social Security. So that's a real sticky point right there, honestly. That's something we'll have to. Do you know, Representative Thomas, is the General Assembly talking about taking this up next year for fixes? Have you heard?
That out at caucus.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. And I think regardless, it's the right thing to do. And for the people of our community, I know it says May, but the people of the community are going to get a petition together and they're going to put on the ballot. So then it'll be shall. So it's probably better that at this time of May that the county does create an ordinance and go ahead and go forward with it. I would like input from Teresa or Marty of either one of your associations or your statewide organizations or anything. If one or both of you want to say something, lend to this.
Let those 5,000 parcels go and put a cap on them. At some point, you're going to have to. Don't know who, so they said we continue with the way we normally do. And then that causes a problem. So when I get value over this to our electric, how is she going to know?
and the collector is not supposed to change the tax bill.
Oh, right. Sure.
Make the calculation, so the implementation of this is started.
I agree. That's a good point.
We don't know who to do it.
It's gonna be very difficult. You'll need a
Well,
an
to
entire
do it,
system.
to do it
So-
too are going to be the people that come forward and say, I'm eligible for this. And then they're going to have the burden of proof on eligibility will be on the homeowner.
We would just be able to base it off of costing them back.
No, we've already.
No,
But
you
we're
would,
not
you would,
gonna
if
do
somebody
that.
comes forward in, let's say, July of 24 and says, here, I'm eligible, then you freeze, I think, their assessment at 23 as of 8/28/23.
Yeah, both the bar associations not agreed on that.
Yeah, see, that's crazy already, just by, yeah. I like a point you brought up. Let's say, you know, and I think this probably happens a lot down here. You might have a couple and they're eligible for this thing, but maybe one of their kids live with them too in one of these bigger houses here. Like you say, you know, maybe they want to add a second or third bedroom into this place and have the family come down and live. And now those eligible individuals pass away. We know now then that credit stops. And now the reassessment has to go back to current. We'll have to reassess it for current time because theirs drops off if they passed away. So you'll have to go reassess it. I see some spikes and yeah.
Right.
You're gonna have people's names that changing. I think you're gonna have all kinds of. You're gonna have people flooding other counties, changing.
Oh yeah, sure.
These guys don't do, you guys do, not all the same. There's gonna be people.
And they're going to have to, and those folks, a lot of folks down here are second homeowners. So they're going to have to figure out what their primary homestead is, whether it's back in Kansas City or St. Louis, or if their homestead is now going to be here in Camden County. So, and I don't know, that'll be another question. Once you declare your homestead, and then things change in a different county, and now I want to go get that tax break. Is that going to be able to, are you going to be able to forgive this one and now make that your homestead?
Well, and so one of the things, Marty, that I've started drafting, and these are things that we need to talk some more about, but when you look at some of the definitions that are already in the state statutes and the state regulations, it talks about using things like, well, where's your tax return going? You know, what address are you using for your tax return? What address are you using for your personal property? Not necessarily a boat, because everybody's got a boat down here that's probably registered here. But yeah, voter registration is the other one.
That's a big one.
Where are you voting? So I've got some of those things already lined out. I want to talk some more about some of those things with you guys, because that is a question. Residency is a problem. And
Like Ike said, the burden of proof will be on the constituent too.
Well, I'm sure of it. Now, here's the thing too, you know, we can say eligibility, and so then homestead and providing, you know, whatever residency is, we're going to probably have to put in.
Kids moving into that.
Yeah, we're going to have to put somewhere as to what eligibility actually is, because
Right.
it's very vague in the statute or in the law now. It's law. So, yeah, right. I think we're going to have to determine that
Define.
here also. We're going to have to determine what residency is versus are based on, you know, Black's Law Dictionary of Residency. What does the state already recognize as residency, and put that into our playbook. Yeah. So I'm going to open this up to the public here in just a minute. I really just kind of wanted to get the principles that are involved here to implement this thing first. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask one of these gentlemen to offer a motion to direct the county attorney to draw up this ordinance. So once that motion's on the floor, then I'll open it up to the public. Teresa, do you have anything else to add otherwise? Right, no, right, exactly. Yeah. So in reality, I mean,
is there a statute pertaining to that, Teresa?
so and so like today, Marty tells you what the assessed valuation is a piece of property. You determine what the levies are and what the no, he determines what the levies are, but the levies are there. And that's what you got to deal with as a dollar amount. So it's really not going to put a whole lot of extra burden on your office. Is that probably correct? Because you're still just dispersing, you're collecting money. Well, I mean, yeah, right. It's mostly on you, big boy. Well, right, but well, but you're going to have to determine the eligibility and the homestead before you say, okay, we'll freeze your taxes. Go ahead, Don.
I'd say, I think the overall problem is it's going to be a burden on somebody. It's just every time you create a new ordinance or you change an old ordinance,
It gets
you
punted
always
around.
enter an enforcement or a management mechanism that always adds to the expense of government. And in this case, I think it's going to be quite a burden because, like you said, you may have an elderly resident that owns a property and lives there, but the bill for their taxes may get sent to their daughter who lives in Kansas City. You know, so that's just one example. Like I said, you could have one elderly person that owns property, but their kids actually live there. So it's
well, they have to be the resident though. So if they own that piece of property, but only the kids live there, then they're not the residents of that property.
And that's why we have to figure out.
How do you find that out?
Right, that's the problem right there. How do you prove residency?
Voter registration.
Not everyone votes though.
I mean, I thought we were going to be answering questions this morning instead of creating more of them.
Marty just
no, I hear you, man. I mean,
that's the problem right there. That's the burden.
Who's the traffic?
Could you tie it to a deed, and so that when that deed got transferred to a new buyer, that somehow or another, then all of a sudden you pick up with the current assessment? Your fault. There you go. The reporter's fault. I mean, it should be their responsibility.
Well, I mean, that raises an interesting point. So when the citizenry gets their paperwork together and says, I am eligible for this thing, I've read the law, here's my proof of residency, here's my proof of homestead, who do I take that to and say, I want the freeze?
That's the question, because it does not say it in any part of the legislation.
Go ahead, Mr. Waller.
It gets down to semantics, and I'd like to have the word clause identified in semantics with the word proposal. And the word, a lot of other words that fit in that same category. We talked about being grandfathered in. That's a clause. What's the difference between a clause and an assumption or a law that's been passed? By definition. You know?
Some of that we'll have to take into consideration. So I come back to again, who is going to make that? Who does the citizen take that to and say, here I am, I'm eligible, I want my property tax froze?
Well, and I think that's one of those things that we got to talk about as a county. We got to figure that out, you know, and like I said, in some counties, maybe it is the clerk, some counties, maybe it's the collector. I don't, those are questions that we don't have answers to yet.
So
Well,
then, how, all right.
I
Then.
think it would be
Because-
Marty's office though, just because you start out, if somebody wants to change,
An
if they
assessment
want to go in there and argue on their assessment, where do
starts
they
with
go?
you.
Starts with you.
So then maybe after you say, yeah, you're eligible, and here's what we're going to freeze it at, they then take some documentation to the recorder's office that gets attached to their deed then for posterity and for the legal being there. I don't, so how about, all right, so those are things that I think that
I think
we're
all
going
that,
to have to sit down in a working session and just us, and I mean, the public will be there, don't get me wrong, but it'll just be us. We're going to have to hammer this out and take a day or whatever to
the
figure it out.
procedure of it.
Right. Some of those
Oh,
things
we'll
down.
figure it out. It's just going through the motions. And I think, I mean, the way I envision it is it would start in Marty's office, go to Teresa's with the freeze. And I don't know how much more layers you need to add. I mean, they're going to fill out what they're going to fill out what they're responsible for. This is my age. This is my information. This is my proof that I'm Social Security eligible. They're going to take it to Marty. He's going to say, okay, we've already got the software set up through Rob. He's going to freeze it, and we can check off all the levies, whichever levies want to protest it and sue us. They're going to do that on their own, and they'll take the political hit if they want to, which I doubt they will, but we'll see. I mean, 30% of our county is eligible for this. So we'll see if they want to go that route. It is 30%. It's what was it? I gave it to you. It was 11,000 folks were eligible. Yeah, it was about 11,000 people
I think
that were eligible for it.
the real problem
Yep.
here is we've got to come up with a procedure that accounts for every imaginable eventuality. You know what I mean? Because there's so many different things that we could deal with. so
Yeah, I
many
mean,
different-
like those questions they brought up though, like, is this an estate? Is this, those need to be on that for sure.
And then you also need some way to track it where you may have someone who's eligible that owns the property and then they sell the property. That's got to be tracked and paid attention to so that they come off the list.
So
It may simply come down to, are you focusing on the real estate or are you focusing on the individual?
The individual.
it's the
That
individual
might be
because
a better way to do it.
That's kind of getting spooky though.
Yeah.
how many of you?
I want to see the software that Rob developed for this just to see if we did like the most cookie cutter, 65-year-old person, put them through the system and see what it looks like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Figure out how to do it.
Well, we've got to,
Yeah. Go ahead, Don. You have to own the property.
We'll send out, we'll try to get letters out to people in the county and have them send in some information ahead of time. When you come in, they've already got a little bit of this work done before they walk up to the collector and say, hey, I'm eligible for this. So they could solve some of that problem.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up to the floor because I don't know that we're going to have a motion here, but I'm curious what everybody else has to say. Go ahead, Jim.
Yes, read an interesting article earlier this morning. Collector from Cole County.
I saw that.
Two other collectors. And Tony Lukemeyer, who I think was a major sponsor. And 2 points, the intent of the law and the way the law is written.
Two different things.
None of those people were against it. It doesn't appear that really anybody's against it.
No.
What Tony said was, his words, it will be easy when the legislature reconvenes in January to fix it. Because the intent of the law is not if you're getting Social Security, it's if you're of an age that you could get Social Security if you were eligible. That's not the way the law is written.
Right.
So school teachers, railroad employees, former federal government employees.
Yeah. See, I tend to agree with that. I think we're going to open it for anybody that is, 62, 65, what have you. I don't know what that age needs to be, but well,
Yeah, I hope so.
he's been in the legislature for a little while. He probably, he should understand that might not be a given.
I think he's a resident now too, right? Camden County.
That's all right. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
Craft this to our, like, why wouldn't you just say, I was under the assumption this was senior citizen, not open to, people that are out there just.
It's not. It should be 62, 65 and above. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So why can't you craft it to state that you're only eligible if you're a senior citizen or you're above 62 and you're on Social Security for whatever reason, disability or whatever, instead of opening this up to 30% out.
We only have so much latitude to define something in a statute. In our ordinance, we only have so much latitude in that. But I think where you're going is where I envision going. We're going to have to state what is Social Security eligible. I think we're going to have to say 62, 65. I don't know whatever that number is, but I think that's right. I think it's the age. We know the sponsor of the bill said, if you're old enough to receive, this is what we wanted. We wanted senior citizens to get a break on their doggone property tax.
Yeah.
And that is the intent, and that's the spirit. And I think that's the right thing to do. So getting to that point, but with the 30%, that's how many potentially eligible people at that age that we have in our county, because there's a lot of retirees live here. So we might get hit more than some other counties, but I think it is our responsibility then to figure out how to deal with that hit. It's your money. You should be able to keep more of it.
How you go about it, but I would think that you could just keep reassessing every year with a footnote on your that you pass on to the collector that says this is frozen until property transfers to another owner.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, Marty.
That's
That might
interesting.
be a GIS type thing to locate. Donnie, you're up.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the same thing, and I'm not sure I don't know how this coincides with the Hancock Amendment, because to me, the Hancock Amendment in its most basic form states that if you're going to increase the tax rate or if you're going to enlarge the tax base, it has to go to a vote of the people. Well, to me, this obviously impacts that. So it would seem to me like it would have to be a vote of the people, but apparently not. So I'm not sure. And the Hancock Amendment does more than that. That's just the basics. But that's a good question. That's something I was wondering too.
Matt, you had your hand up?
Well, I was just going to say, I like the idea behind it. Help my mother out and help out a lot of people who are on fixed incomes, at the age. So I think it's a good idea to do. I worry it's going to fail under a constitutional challenge. I think the 14th Amendment may prevent the implementation of this, because you cannot treat people unequally based off of age, sex, or even income.
What about the current circuit? What about the current circuit breaker law we have now? The only difference, what I thought with this SB 190 right now, if you have an income, there's an income qualification that you can get this tax break as a tax credit already. If you're that age, your homeowner, all that sort of stuff, and your income is at a certain level. This kind of removed that income portion of it. I mean, there's some different nuances, but
may not, totally wrong, but I'm sure there's
No, I
gonna
hear
be a
you.
lawsuit. We might be spending money to taking ourselves a lawsuit, or how would that work would be one question that I would have. And I would just say, I think we do need to do it.
I'm sure it'll be filed in Cole County.
Yeah, the circuit breaker is a state thing though, right? Yeah. Yeah. For that circuit breaker. I was just. They get it back. I was just thinking about the equal protection under the law that Matt was coming up with, so.
I have to go get an inspection on my vehicle for annual tags every year.
I think that's the interesting part about this is we could maybe add something like that to the ordinance. It says every 2 years you have to, reapply or something.
I think the current circuit breaker that Ike was referring to, the individual that's requesting it has to request it every year on their tax return. I did it for my mother for years. And when you file your taxes, you have to ask for that tax credit. And so my intent was to follow that, and that application would have to be filed every year.
But this isn't a tax credit.
Technically, it is a tax credit, because what it says is your assessment, your taxes are to be frozen as of August 28th. Your assessment could continue to go up, and the difference is a tax credit that you would receive. Now, one of the discussions is if you leave the assessment at the August 28th value, then you don't have any money exchanging hands. You don't have to worry about a credit. And that's one of the things we're trying to figure out, which is the best approach, because that makes a major difference on both the collector and the assessor's office.
So
is how we approach that. I think so, yes.
Any other questions or any other input from the floor? Go ahead, Don. Thank you, sir.
Well, there's a line about fools rushing in. Well, I guess maybe that's me. And there's some old adages that maybe come to mind here. I don't mean to elevate myself to Mr. John Adams, but Mr. Adams defended in court early on some British soldiers, and he was widely castigated for that. I stand here today, I'll make no bones about it, in opposition to this. Full disclosure, I'm 65. Would my wife and I be eligible? Yes. But another adage comes to mind too, is that what a tangled web we weave, and I think the last 15 minutes has been demonstrative of that, when first we seek to deceive. And who are we seeking to deceive? Above all else, ourselves. Tax revenue, is this going to be a tax neutral in terms of total tax monies? I would submit not. In order to make it such, there'd have to be some catch up in some other ways. I have 7 grandchildren. All but one reside here in the state of Missouri. Can I look myself in the mirror when I shave, and some of us have a little more to do than others, or look at those grandchildren and say, I feel good about myself for offloading some of my rightful tax revenue that I'm due to provide for the maintenance and operation of my local government onto you just because you're younger. For a number of years, I worked in EMS when I first came here. There was no ambulance district. It was totally a privately operated entity. In later years, I also worked as a firefighter, as a volunteer capacity for some years as well. Both of those services have now been added on to our tax base in this county. For better or worse, we can argue either way. But I would submit and say, where does it stop? Earlier in this meeting as well, we all talked about ourselves, and I think many of us will fancy ourselves as being of a conservative or a fiscally sound bent. And what we've been discussing here, does it really meet that criteria? I would submit to you it does not. So I would close with that. So, the image of something in a punch bowl or a pork chop at a bar mitzvah, Exhibit A today. Thank you, though, gentlemen.
Oh, yeah. Hey.
Thank you.
Don, I not only do I appreciate your insights for several years now that I've known you, but I appreciate the fact that you are pretty solid in the way you think of things. And I appreciate the fact that you oppose this and are willing to say it. That's awesome. That's how we do things is a little bit of opposition, a little bit of going forward. So I like the input. It's good thought. Freeze everybody's taxes. Yeah, there you go. No,
I mean, they're pretty low in Camden County to begin with. So
yeah, that's pretty good. That's good. So anybody else? Anything else they'd like to say on this topic? It's not the last time we're going to be talking SB 190, I assure you. But I'll take your input absolutely right now if you want any of it. All right, then. So County Commissioner, what are we going to do with this issue? Shall we? I've just had a thought pop into my head since so many other questions popped up this morning. Maybe we could ask for even a couple of citizens input if they want to put a little I don't know, call it, I hate this stuff, but call it an advisory committee or a board or a working group or something to help hash out all of these questions. Otherwise, we're going to be in the same room or another room doing the exact same thing another time.
I think it's our responsibility, really. We've got elected officials that we need to work with and get it figured out. If you add another group onto it, you're adding more time and more.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
I think we need to table it for now because we have a lot more research to do.
So, Jordan, what do we have on our schedule that maybe, let's see.
I think we need a motion to direct Jeffrey to pursue some type of ordinance language if we want to pursue it altogether.
I was thinking that if we get, Marty and Teresa and Jeff together and us and whomever else and answer these questions that have come up today, and through that, Jeffrey creates that ordinance after those questions are being asked, and you put that other stuff in there, that's probably going to be the most healthy, because either that or you write something up that you think is going to be good, and then we'll come back and have input from everybody to tweak it. Which way do you think would be better?
No, I think we've got to, I don't know what the definition of we is. That might be me.
That'd be you.
Yeah. But
Let's define we.
I think we need to work.
Hey, this is a team.
I
You're
know,
doing
right?
the work.
We need to work with Marty and the collector's office and maybe the clerk's office. There's some things today I hadn't heard of or thought about before, to go through some of those. And, frankly, the other consideration as I was sitting here is the health department involved? I mean, do we need to worry about death certificates when somebody dies and identify it? I don't know, because we've got the annual application process too. So right. I think there's some questions that my recommendation would be it's easier with a small group. And I think between Marty and Teresa and myself, I think there's probably enough knowledge base there with the problems and concerns that we can at least get something that's pretty solid.
A good draft,
but a good draft to put out there, and then we can go from there.
How long do you think you need to complete that?
That's why I'm looking at you, Marty. Yeah. Well, it's not going to, August 28th would be the date that would be the valuation date. The beginning date of this thing wouldn't be until next year. So, although I think we've got to get something in place, because if we've got programming to do or anything of that nature or staffing, I mean, I don't know what this is going to look like. So we need that in place long before January 1st. So, yeah.
I think we're putting the cart before the horse. I mean, we're talking about drafting an ordinance. We don't even know yet how we're going to implement it, what the cost is going to be to implement it, the impact it's going to have on revenue.
Well, and those are all the things that I'd want to talk to with these guys, trying to figure all that out.
Yeah, I think we should get all that hammered out before we start trying to craft an ordinance. I mean, I don't want to vote on something without knowing what I'm voting on.
How about and
the impact?
How about the first week in September?
That's fine. I think that's good.
That works.
That works.
No. First week in September. How about a Tuesday, the first week of September? Okay, how about the Thursday? The Thursday of that week is a what? September 7th? So 9/7/23. You'll have something hashed out that we can present to the commission, and all right, I'll take a motion to direct that.
We will have something hashed out or something to present.
Okay. All right, so let's, I'd entertain a motion to direct the county attorney to draft this proposal and have it available by 9/7/23. Unless, or
Yeah,
whatever motion you want to put forward.
I'll submit a motion to direct the county attorney to draft language for an ordinance pertaining to SB 190.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to direct the county attorney to draft some language for SB 190, an ordinance for SB 190, and have it for our review.
I want to amend that and put for review.
For review. Very good.
Jeffrey was sweating, nervous, but
Do we have any discussion on the motion?
really throw it on him.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion on the motion. The motion on the floor is to have the county attorney draft something for an ordinance for SB 190 for review by the commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Seeing none, the motion carries. Very good. At this time, we have nothing else on the agenda. I always open up the floor to anyone who might want to bring something to the county commission. If there's anyone at this time would like to bring up something new or exciting or something you'd like for us to address, please do. Yes, ma'am.
Make an announcement. I don't know.
Woohoo!
Most of you
We love
probably-
announcements.
Yeah, probably you all know. Well, it's a sad announcement.
Oh.
Dr. James Nolan,
Yeah.
died last week. His funeral will be this Friday here in Camdenton. I'll get you the details, but he was the oldest living former representative, former senator from Missouri, longtime school superintendent.
The old war horse.
Amazing. Nolan, Dr. Nolan. Oh, he's 98.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
a life well lived, but
He gave us a talking to right after we both got elected. He sat us down and
amazing, and he
told
was
us how it was.
active
It was great.
until the end. Still,
Yeah, he was
making
up here all the
plans to
time.
attend events and keeping up on things. So he was looking forward to the Patriot dinner and asking for the dates of all of that and expecting to be there.
Right. He stayed active. Just a couple of years ago, I was trying to find somebody to build fence for him on his farm for $5 an hour. And I kept saying, Jim, I'm not going to find anybody.
Extremely conservative.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
very, very.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you very much, Representative
Thank you,
Thomas.
Lisa.
Anybody else have anything at this time? Seeing nothing else, I just appreciate you all showing up today and being in our meeting. And Representative Thomas, thank you for being here. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you all. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. I've seen it. I've been
Oh, yeah. You know, I have.
When I put in the paper, the newspaper.